lovers, and welcome to another episode of Corpse Club, the official podcast for DailyDead.com. My name is Heather Wixson, and I am one of your Corpse Club co-hosts. And for this week, we are doing basically a Fantastic Fest blowout, and I'm joined by probably like 30% of the people here at Fantastic Fest this year. No, we actually have a really big show. That's a really old joke, by the way. But we have a lot of fun guests here with me today, and we're going to talk about all kinds of fun stuff we saw at Fantastic Fest. And we, of course, will do our best not to spoil anything for you guys, because a lot of these films will be coming out soon. So I'm just going to kind of throw it over to Adrian, my movie buddy, and I'll let him introduce himself, and then we'll just kind of go around.
I'm Adrian Torres, and I was really surprised that the twist in the Lighthouse was that Batman was just learning how to make the bat signal the whole time, so...
Great, now everyone's going to be super pissed at you.
That's what I do, that's part of my job here, so I'm glad to be involved.
I'm Emily von Seele, and I have no spoilers to report.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm Paul Farrell. I will also try not to spoil things, so I'm a friend of the listener.
You can spoil the peanut butter solution, I think.
Okay, I will absolutely spoil the peanut butter solution, so just skip ahead 5 minutes if you don't want to hear that.
I'm Kat Adams, and I will absolutely tell you which movies hurt animals, so you can avoid them. That's my thing.
I'm Nolan McBride, and I may spoil something just because I want to get across that definitely Heather oversold the fun. Not fun. So I'll spoil something, be the bad apple.
Bad boy Nolan over here. He's a bad boy podcasting.
Oh, I've never been called a bad boy in my life. I got jumped for being too nice once, so...
You should get that as a t-shirt, bad boy podcasting. Just make it your alter ego.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's like day 114 of Fantastic Fest now, and I think we're all in that sort of glazed over moment where we've consumed mass amounts of movies. So I'm curious for you guys, what's been the one movie where you're like, holy shit, I can't believe I just got a chance to watch this? Has there been a movie that's been like, you walked out and you felt like, that feeling when you feel like you're floating on air because you just saw like the coolest shit ever?
I think I'd say, because I think the majority of people in here saw Jallikattu. Mm-hmm. We probably butchered the name, but that's fine. All you need to look online is the Wild Buffalo movie. I know Kat will say something about that one, probably, even if you didn't see it just from word of mouth. Mm-hmm. So, but I think that was the one that was a big surprise. There's always a really good Indian representation, even if it's not like the theme of that year. There's usually at least 1-2 big Indian movies that you want to search out, because Josh Hurtado does a great job selecting these movies that he knows will blow people away, and there's just so much going on in that film, and it just rises to this amazing crescendo of an ending that you're not expecting at all.
Gotcha.
I think the one that I've been the most surprised with was something I saw just this morning, which was Pelican Blood. It's a German film, and it kind of takes on themes of like the evil kid movie, but more from the perspective of the mother and her trying to... Okay.
Don't die.
Oh my God.
The evil kid.
Adrian will no longer be on this episode of Corpse Club.
Rest in peace.
He sadly passed away.
I'm gonna have to get a new movie buddy now.
But you got to hear it live.
Ooh, exciting.
You're all accomplices now.
It's something Adrian and the chicken and Jallikattu have in common.
Spoiler alert.
I didn't even see it.
5. But yeah, kind of evil kid movie, but from the perspective of the mother who realizes that the child that she has adopted was traumatized early, is dealing with a lot of stuff, and as a result, she has no empathy or feelings whatsoever. And the mom is trying to do everything within her power to connect with her daughter and to, forge a bond that the daughter's never had and kind of bring her back to the world in the face of what seems to be, an impossible situation. And it was really heartfelt and it was really moving, but in its own way, it was really, really terrifying at the same time. It was just kind of a surprising take on it, and I really liked it.
So does it have a lot in common with like The Bad Seed?
It does. Yeah.
I love the bad scene.
We all, that's why we're
so
here. We all love
great.
the best scene. Yeah.
All right, so here's what happens in the peanut butter solution. All right, so at the end, all right, no,
All the
that was
problems
not
were
my.
solved by peanut butter.
Yeah, well,
Well, no, it actually
That's life.
it causes a
yeah.
problem.
At the end, the children defeat their imagination and learn to look at the world in a less creative way.
And
that's ultimately the moral.
Yes,
of the
and
movie.
also that you should be wary of art teachers
Oh, God,
who
yeah.
decide that they want to kidnap children to build hair coats.
If your teacher is wearing a coat made of children's hair,
That's a red flag.
probably
Yeah,
red flag.
yeah.
Red
I'm
flag.
not a parent, but I feel like that would be
no,
hard.
yeah, it's a real problem. So no.
Especially in Canada.
Despite
So,
everything you just
in
said,
between,
never mind.
we're a rowdy bunch. That was the bad boy of podcasting, just interrupting again.
Oh gosh.
So no, in between the many time travel movies I saw, actually what really stands out to me, and I mean a lot of movies do, but the one I'm going to call out would be Sweetheart, J.D. Dillard's creature feature that I watched on the first night. Didn't know what it was going in, and I was just really impressed with the simplicity of it. It's kind of a lean, mean monster movie that just wears what it is on its sleeve. It doesn't get bogged down in plot. You know, a lot of monster movies feel the need to go really, really in depth on mythology and things like that, which can be really fun, but sometimes you just want to watch a good old fashioned, you know, creature effects driven monster flick, and that's what this is. You know, the performances are great. It's well directed. It's quick. It's not a long movie. It doesn't overstay its welcome. So I think that's something that I was really excited to check out, and I think everyone should see.
I don't think it would be out of line to call that sort of Castaway meets Predator.
Yes.
For better lack of better terms, or
I
Yeah.
hadn't thought of the Predator, but that's
Strong Castaway vibes, and and it's just, you know, I would be interested in a shipwreck movie on its own, let alone popping in a good old fashioned monster in there. So I was real excited.
I liked the scene when she was trying to like scale the fish and stuff because
Yes.
if I got
that was the
stuck in
closest
it,
thing ever.
yeah, I'm like I don't know what I would do.
Yeah,
I
she
wouldn't
doesn't
even
know
know
what
like
to do.
how to tear a fish apart.
I think JD also said she didn't know what she was doing. They just like had her do what she thought she would, like what would be the best thing to do.
Yeah.
So like she was just actually like sort of trying to survive like she would on the island. So
Yeah, it was awesome.
yeah, I really like that.
I feel somewhat guilty in that the movie I'm probably happiest I saw is not a movie that needs anyone to bolster it a little, because it was the new Takashi Miike film, First Love. I saw that with you.
Yes, we were movie buddies. That
We were
night.
movie buddies.
You're on notice.
I'm sorry. I'm trying not to die over here.
Yeah, he's a ghost now.
Yeah,
so
she
that's
was,
really
and
nice.
she has Suspiria nails, so she's.
Suspiria
I used to Suspiria
Badass.
shit yesterday, so
That's
You don't
true.
have the nails.
But you
I
have the nails.
apologize. Next year.
Next year we'll get your nails done.
First Love was a wonderful surprise. It was really funny, I felt. That was nice. It was part Yakuza crime film, part comedy of errors. It was just really pleasurable to watch the entire time. It was satisfying. Everything that was teed up paid off. And of course it's Miike, so it was beautifully done and just a pleasure to watch. And I went in a little worried because I had to go to work the next day. It'd already been a long day. I'm like, if it's another audition, I may not survive. But it wasn't. It was nice. And I just can't wait for it to get wider release so more people can see it.
Yeah, it's like a Miike buffet.
Yeah.
It's like everything you want out of a Miike movie, like all
Nice.
rolled into one.
I think it also has one of my favorite characters that I've seen at the fest in Yusa, who he's not the main character. He's probably
Yeah.
the top of the secondary character, but he's just everything's going wrong for him. And there's even the part where he punches somebody in the face and just screams, "Why does this keep happening to me?" And it's just he keeps on going on, and he's kind of periphery, but it's just every time you see him, you're like, "Oh, what the hell's going to happen to this guy next?" And there's so much payoff in the film, but even having a character like that who's not really pulling focus, he's just existing in the world, that he was lots of fun, and he's not even a likable character. So the fact that you enjoy
Yeah.
seeing him kind of speaks to the performance.
Well, he's sort of the catalyst for all the chaos that happens in the film. Like, it all,
Yeah.
he instigated most of it. And then he's also the reason so many things go wrong. And seeing that all rooted in the same character from the same source just made it funnier and more satisfying.
It made it very relatable to me because literally everything I touch like goes wrong. So I was like, that's me in a Mickey movie. Like everything, I'm like, I'm gonna do this and be like, oh no, now people are gonna come after you and other people are getting their heads chopped off.
Have you ever considered hiding meth in your jacket? Because that helps things go a lot better.
This movie did make me realize that meth is far more useful than I thought it was.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I'm like, it's changed a little bit of my worldview on meth. I'm like, I'm a fan now. What can I say?
So it's safe to say that's like the primary takeaway from the festival.
Yeah.
Meth
Very
is good.
Right.
Her meth.
Meth is good.
Yeah. We're all very tired.
Yeah. But the meth is helping.
So at least we got that.
Yeah, we got that going for us.
Well, actually, Heather, your point about First Love is actually a perfect segue into my pick, which is The Long Walk, which is another movie about someone who has the best of intentions and tries to help people and just makes everything worse. It's the new movie from Matty Doe, who did Dear Sister, which I still haven't seen. But like, this wasn't really something I was anticipating coming in. I think you might have talked me into it, Kat.
Yeah.
But it ended up, it's right now my favorite thing from the festival. It's like a lo-fi, sci-fi time travel story that's got a pretty heavy supernatural bent to it as well. It's this old man who basically can see ghosts and he goes around trying to help them. And it's sort of about exploring his life in the past and present. Like, time is sort of really fluid. Like, we don't really have a lot of delineation. We'll just go from scene to scene between him as an adult and him as a child. And then obviously with time travel, that starts to blend things together. I just thought the approach, the way she added like a supernatural element and like sort of Eastern philosophy to something that's very time travel driven. Like, you can sort of look at Looper as a similar arc as this movie. But again, this has a very unique cultural perspective that I thought added a lot. And it just ended up being really emotional. Like, it's a slow moving movie. It's very deliberately paced, but by the end, it's like it packs a pretty big punch. And Maddie's introduction to it was very heartfelt, and her talking about it afterwards, I was just like bawling because she was very effective. And she mentioned the movie was made partially for after losing her mother, and then specifically after losing her dog Mango. So as something that we related to. So yeah, it was really great.
Gotcha.
Did you want to see that?
I'm really shocked. I'm sorry?
Oh, no, nothing.
I was going to say, I'm really shocked nobody's mentioned Dick Long.
Well, I mean, we got to save the best for last.
That's true.
That's also, I think you can probably devote an entire episode just to Dick Long.
We should have started the podcast by saying, you guys want to get weird?
Yeah, I know. I totally forgot. All right, let's start over again.
Can you please tell me that you're going to play With Arms Wide Open?
At the end of this. But I think I get in trouble for music. I'm not sure, so I'll have to see. But no one's looking for that.
Or at the end, we'll sing this out a cappella. This is how you remind me.
Yes,
Yeah.
because I had that
Hey,
stuck in my
don't soil
head.
that band's good name.
I literally had that stuck in my head for a good 24
Which
hours.
also, I asked these people, was that guy cast because he looks like Chad
Yes,
Kroeger?
he was.
Like, is
I asked.
that one big punchline? Because that's amazing.
I asked the director, because I interviewed the director the next day, and I said, so I'm guessing it's not a coincidence that he happens to like be very Chad Kroeger-esque, and he's like, no. He's like, we had him sort of dye his hair and kind of keep it
Amazing.
Yeah.
greasy and crunchy, kind of a la late 90s, early 2000 rock, and I was like, cool.
Well,
all
someone
right.
that shares a birthday with Chad Kroeger, I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I would expect nothing less from the bad boy of podcasting. I'm going to make that stick now.
Friends with Chad Kroeger.
It is going to stick, I promise you.
He's the
that.
bad boy.
We will
of
carry it
Canadian
over.
rock.
We're not,
So-
yeah, you guys are on the same level pretty much. Yeah, for me, I think, First Love was a huge highlight for me. I think my biggest surprise going into this first secret screening, I actually was expecting the Lighthouse night one for the secret screening, and it ended up being My Name is Dolemite. I know we're a horror podcast, but whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, like I'm excited to see because I love Craig Brewer. And that movie is just so freaking good. Like, it's ridiculous how good it is. It's up there as one of my favorite from Craig Brewer. I think Eddie Murphy, if he doesn't get nominated for an Oscar, I'm not being hyperbolic. It would be a crime against nature. That whole entire cast is so great. Mike Epps is in it. Keegan-Michael Key, Craig Robinson, who I have a little bit of a thing for, and he sings in it. So I was just like, I was feeling it. I got to host a screening with him for Tragedy Girls, and I was just like,
I'm jealous.
and I was like, can you just say welcome to heaven, mother? We're dropping it, so there we go. I'm like, welcome to heaven, motherfuckers. And I was like, okay, life complete. But it's so good. I'm a big fan of movies about movies getting made, because that's just like one of my things. Like if it's a movie about movie making, like I'm already halfway there. And I think it's a real testament to anybody, any point in their life, who has dreamt about something bigger, has wanted to do something, and everybody in the world is telling them, there's no way you can do this. There's no way you can be this person. Just settle with the life you have. And he doesn't. And I think there's something really special about it. And Divine Joy Randolph also, she plays, I think it's Lady B in the movie. Queen, Lady B?
It's I think Queen Bee's the character in Dolemite, but she's Lady something.
Okay.
But not Lady B. They changed it a little bit for her character in the movie.
But she's so good, and there's like this moment at the end of the movie, and I'm not spoiling anything, but she goes up, they're getting ready for the premiere of the movie, and she goes up to Rudy, who's played by Eddie Murphy, and she's just like, I just want to say thank you. She's like, until this moment, I've never seen anybody on the screen who looks like me. And being a bigger gal, that really hit me. Like, I was like, oh my God, I'm in it. But I thought that was just fantastic. And I think, again, not in genre, but Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah, and we have to mention that. That movie was revelatory.
I was I don't know if you guys were nervous about it. I was nervous about it. I wasn't expecting it to end as strongly as it started. And I'm just like, holy shit, how great is Taika?
Yeah.
So great.
Just the way he was able to balance tone, even if none of the rest of it worked, that would be impressive. But all the rest of it worked. It was absurd. It was heartfelt. It was perfect.
Yeah.
So it was good?
Yes.
I thought I'm the only one who didn't get to see it.
And it's rare that you can have a movie that's tackling this sort of subject matter and be consistently hilarious. Not just funny, it was just really, really good laughs all the way through. Especially as we've talked about Yorkie, we call him Little Nick Frost.
Yorkie.
Yeah.
He is the most adorable kid ever. It's great.
I like that you called him Little Nick Frost.
Yeah.
I thought that too.
Yeah.
And I think also what's interesting about the movie is the humor never comes at the expense of the film's message.
No.
Yeah,
No.
And I think
he
that's
balances
important.
it so well that it's never, a farce. It's never a joke, but it's still, it keeps you happy throughout, even though it's dealing with a really grim time in history and a subject matter and all of it.
Because it serves the message. It never is like an overlay or something to detract from it.
Yeah.
If we weren't laughing, we might not be able to relate to Jojo, who, sweet and innocent though he is still pretty gung-ho for the Nazis. And that's not the most popular of stances. It's making a comeback, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But historically, we haven't been a fan. But because it's funny, we're able to see the humanity in it. While the movie never apologizes for the stances people took, it does help you understand maybe how to prevent it the next time around.
Yeah, it felt like a really important movie. And I think the way, and also just it solidifies that he really is a master of tone. I can't think of many other filmmakers right now who can really allow you to uproariously laugh and then minutes later cry your eyes out in a way that feels genuine and true to the story and the narrative and its message and everything else. But just to accomplish that cinematically is so difficult. The craft that takes, and he does it so effortlessly in this movie across the board that I was just in awe of the filmmaking, and the music, the way he uses that. And to you guys' point, I mentioned this before and when we were talking about it, but in his Q&A, he talked about how it's important that we keep telling these stories, because even though we all know them, we all know what happened with the Nazis and everything else, but we hear it so much that we become sort of numb to it. So it's important that filmmakers and storytellers find new ways to tell the same stories over and over again, so we never ever forget, because we shouldn't forget those things. And I thought that was a really brilliant, poignant way to sort of wrap up what the movie represents.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting too that, you know, we see a lot of movies where it's that sort of nature versus nurture exploration of kids and how they grow up in the environments that they grow up in. And I think what's really interesting about Jojo is that it's a character that can change and does change.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of hopefulness at the end of the movie, obviously, because things go bad for the Nazis. No
Yes.
spoilers,
Spoiler.
sorry. Sorry.
Peanut butter solution all over again.
Next, you're gonna tell me that Hitler died.
I hate to burst your bubble
We
there.
might have to have a
I
conversation.
thought he was
after
still
this.
alive.
No, he's on Mars right now.
Yeah.
Yep. His brain's in a jar.
But what I think is really interesting is that I think it's sort of when you look at it within the lens of today, because there's a lot of people out there who are doing things that we don't agree with and who are doing very hateful things. And it's easy to shut those people down, and it's easy to just be like, F you, and we should. But there's also still that part of me that doesn't want to give up on people that maybe, you know, I think some people can't change, but I think there are people who can. And I think it's a testament to that where we have to keep fighting for what we believe in because we can make an impact. And I think ultimately, I don't go on Twitter a whole lot anymore because it's just depressing as hell every single day. But it's like I left this movie thinking like, you know, we might be okay. Like I feel like we might be all right when this is all over.
Yeah.
Hopefully sooner than later.
Yes.
So true.
Yeah, and I feel like also it's like we don't see, I mean, there's not a ton of like the war that you actually see, but it's like still one of the best war movies because it's all just about the impact of the war on people at home and just seeing like, again, you don't forgive the people there, but you can understand why a lot of those people fell in line for survival. Like it's just like all of that. It's just, it has a lot of humanity, obviously. So.
Yeah. We're not always the good guys in war either, so you know.
Well, because war's not good.
No.
He talked about, you know, there's a very direct visual reference to All Quiet on the Western Front in Jojo Rabbit because he sees it as the first, and it, you know, was the first anti-war war film, and this is going for a similar thing.
Is it weird, like, because somebody mentioned time travel, like, we've had there seem to be a lot of themes to the movies this year.
Yes.
Yes.
And I was like thinking, I've seen a lot of time travel movies.
So much time travel.
I'm trying to think, so there was
Long Walk, Synchronic.
In the Shadow of the Moon,
I didn't
The Wave.
time travel.
The Wave.
And I would argue In the Tall Grass
In the
has
Tall Grass, that's what I was going to say.
tons of time travel-y elements.
Yeah, but that's not the main theme of that movie, which is here's some really tall grass.
Okay,
Here's some grass.
fair enough.
Here's some
Don't-
really tall grass.
Don't forget The Rock.
And I don't want
Grass and the Rock are
to. Nobody here
misunderstood.
wants to underplay the amount of tall grass that's in the tall grass, but
Yeah.
time travels.
Yeah, and then there's also Night Drive. Also has some elements of
Interesting.
that
Oh,
too as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
But yeah, Tallgrass, I guess that's a good one to talk about because of Vincenzo Natali, who is like from Detroit. I spent my whole life
Godfather. Say it
thinking
like
he
the
was like,
Godfather.
you know, I always assumed like he came over and, you know, he's
Yeah.
Vincenzo Natali. He's
Yeah.
got the coolest
He's a good
name,
one.
right?
Italian by way of Canada.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think he was born in Detroit. If I'm not
Well,
mistaken.
Detroit is like right. There's a bridge that crosses into the Canadian border, so maybe he was like right
That's true.
there.
That Michigan's up there.
So there's basically once you hit a certain age and you realize you're living in Detroit, you cross that bridge.
Yes.
Yeah, and you're like, I'm
Make it
going.
That sounds like the premise
Makes
to a
the
new
journey.
YA novel. Like, oh,
Once you reach a certain age,
Bridge you
you're
cross.
bridge.
Sent to Canada.
If you want to survive.
If you Logan's Run,
Right.
you move to Canada.
Eminem meets you at the other end of the bridge and gives you a Chrysler 200 to remember your time in Detroit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want a Chrysler 200.
Sounds like a good deal.
But I'm curious, like, I liked In the Tall Grass. I don't know that I loved it.
Yeah.
I don't know that I felt like it went far enough, but I'm curious how you guys fared with it. I mean, it's going to be on Netflix, I think, in like a few weeks.
Yeah,
Or is that one that's a couple of days? I know there's one that's
Yeah, I
like
think
on
it's
a,
Oh, actually, you know what? It
27th
might
or
be.
28th,
Yeah,
so.
actually, I think it is the 27th.
by the time you hear this, you can go onto Netflix.
Right, so you guys can check it out for yourselves. But yeah, I thought it was fine, but I didn't think it was particularly mind-blowing. I think the thing that I actually liked the most about it was some of the visual elements. I think that there were a lot of really cool aerial shots showing kind of the grass moving as
I
our
love the
characters-
wavy.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was just cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then as things got weirder towards the end, there were kind of some cutaways to like wind and blood and all these kind of random things that kind of set the tone. So I liked it, but I didn't love it.
I think, Heather, you and I mentioned that the weird stuff, the weird visuals, wish there would have been more of that, or wish the story would have chased that a
I
lot
agree,
because
yeah.
that's when I got the most hopeful for it. I thought it was going to really go there, and instead it felt, for me, the characters felt very archetypal, not particularly interesting. It brought up a lot of good stuff, and then we just sort of watched it play out. It wasn't innovative, especially.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to some of its pacing issues because, the first portion of the film is sort of kind of playing it safe and gets a little samey. And while I do really love the visual nature of the grass, it has ocean-like. I thought that was really cool. There's only so long I think I can stare at cutaways of that before I start wanting something maybe a little bit more in advance, which I agree with you when it got to sort of the third act stuff. It started giving me a little bit of what I wanted the whole time, but it felt sort of disparate with the rest of the movie and not really well tied into what they had set up so far. So I felt like it just had a lot of different ideas going on. It was pleasant to see Patrick Wilson show up. That I did not expect that, so that was pretty great.
And I don't think
Can't
it's
see
really.
Patrick Wilson.
I mean, because it is a weird Stephen King movie, I don't think it's out of line to say that you probably shouldn't trust people that you're meeting in the tall grass.
Yeah.
Right.
I wouldn't.
You
I
know,
wouldn't either.
especially a sweaty Patrick Wilson.
Who just kind of pops out of nowhere.
He's like, hey.
guys.
Although he does sing like an angel,
He
so
does.
I mean that
He
might
does. He does.
And I
allow you
haven't
to-
read the novella, so I don't know how closely this adheres to the source material. Or
Well,
how
it's in the book that you
deviations.
should have gotten.
I did. Thank you, Kat.
Welcome.
Oh, it's in that book. Oh, okay.
So now I will read it.
He's much more minimalized in the book versus what's here. I read the cliff notes of it just before I went into the screening just to kind of get an idea. And they do change it, because the novella is 60 pages.
Yeah.
So, how do you turn that into 90 minutes of a movie? So I think his character is expanded. The ending is different. There's some beats of the story that are different from what I read. And I think for the most part, those changes work in favor of the movie. But yeah, I wanted Vincenzo to go just bigger and weirder. God bless him. I love Splice. I just wanted
Yeah,
weird.
especially given that's the thing, given his past work. It's a very safe movie in a lot of it plays it very safe, and that was really strange because of what I've come to expect from him.
You were talking about continuing themes and stuff, and this film falls into something that I think we've all discussed at various different points about a couple movies that are here that, as great as they are, it feels like a couple of them are a little bit too long, especially this being based off a novella. And there were a couple of movies that it's had it been shorter, had it been part of an anthology or been an episode of a television anthology, that would have been better served. So this being 90 minutes, they're forced to try to get to that point and stretching stuff out, where had this been 50 minutes or an hour, they could have made it tighter and more concise. And I know that was kind of the overarching feeling that people had from Vivarium the other day, was the same way, that had they made this more concise, that it would have been good as well. And I think that's one of the things that kind of holds it back, because while there is the time travel and stuff, there's a point where they're just repeating themselves to almost be repeating themselves as opposed to digging into deeper. Because you can fall on two sides when it comes to certain movies like this, don't explain a whole bunch of stuff or do, but there's certain parts with the Black Rock, a little bit more time spent with that, since they have the designs and everything that are on there. And when you touch it, you learn the history of it, but then no one's sharing
The history of
any
it.
of the history of it.
Yeah.
I remember that pit full of bodies. That was interesting. Did it sneak in from another movie, or? No.
Well, that's the Black Rock. It covered up with the soil. It can't move the dead bodies, but it can move the soil.
Oh, okay.
Ah, okay.
Also, Fake
I didn't
Dog.
see it, so
Okay.
Yeah.
spoilers. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. I'm
It
not
talks
worried about
about in terms of concise gut punch filmmaking. Did everybody see VFW?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my lord, I love VFW.
it. Yeah, that's great.
That's such a blast.
I know a lot of you guys got to go and watch Bliss shortly
Right,
after,
I also loved Bliss.
which is pretty awesome. That's both of those are from Joe Bigos,
Yeah.
who for years I was saying Joe Bagos, but it's Bigos. And it's been really cool to kind of see his career evolve as it has. Ever since Almost Human, and then he did The Mind's Eye, and then Bliss, and now VFW. I think for me, VFW is my favorite, because I think it nails character, it nails story, doesn't mess around, gives you exactly what you want from this type of movie. But I will say that I do think it's interesting in movies, you almost sometimes you want your villains to be sort of the centerpiece because everybody loves a good villain. But I think this is one of those rare movies where your heroes are actually the most interesting characters and your villains get a little bit lost along the way.
Yeah.
Well, they just can't compete with like, what is it, 6 like big character
Of the
like
best
huge
character
genre
actors
character,
working
like,
in Hollywood today.
like what's that guy gonna do?
Right, and I think I agree with you, and well, because usually those guys would be playing the villains.
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
the character actors are in that other role, so it's an inverse of that. But what made it so much fun though, because you get to watch them more. Because usually the villain is relegated to a slightly smaller part. You don't see them as much. Like what screen time they have has to be really impactful. But I mean, Stephen Lang in this movie was just one of the most fun, interesting genre performances of the year for me, and you know, it's just a blast to watch. The effects, I mean, it was all practical effects. It was a dirty, grimy, you know, movie that should be that way. The humor all worked. You know, every last cast member. Whatever screen time they had, whether it was 5 minutes or an hour, was perfect and, you know, delivered exactly as you'd want it to be. So I think it's a movie that's going to really resonate with audiences. I think people are going to love this movie.
It's a lot of fun, and I really appreciated it's a tight movie. It's not very long, and there's not a whole lot of fat on it. But in the beginning, we get this great scene at the bar, the VFW hall, where all of these characters are just sitting around and having a drink and, you know, bullshitting with each other, and we really get a sense of who they are, how they relate to one another, and how they've built this kind of de facto family around each other and their history together. And that's all before things go insane. So we get some time to allow these characters to really settle in and feel lived in and bond with each other before we go into the action-packed onslaught of total depravity.
And the setup for it is really good because like you do, before all of them even get together though, you have like a couple of them starting to string together. So it's like, if you have this many guys together with this much of a shared history, it'd almost be alienating, but they like ease you into it, and then like you're one of the group basically by the end of it. So.
And I think in a lot of scenes, Bill Sadler steals the show.
That's what I said too. Like he's just so funny.
Bill Sadler's
The thing
fantastic movie.
like the small little moment, because it's got so many great small little moments. One of those just kind of filled me with joy and nostalgia is just Fred Williamson saying "Hi-ya."
Yes.
And then getting into a slight karate pose, even at his age, it's just like that's what you want. Like,
that was
that's
his
what you
son
want.
also in it
Yeah.
too, right?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't dream that up, right? They said
No,
that that's his son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a new guy who kind of comes in, and I'm so blanking on his name, but he basically plays like a newer. He's a guy who just got back from overseas, goes to the VFW to get a drink, and it's Fred Williamson's kid, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And they got to do a lot of scenes together, which I'm sure was pretty bad for them.
Everybody, David Patrick Kelly's in it, so
Yeah.
And I like the inclusion of that character because I think that's one of the reasons we get so endeared to them and that they don't feel cliquey is we see them welcome in a new person, right?
Yeah.
Open arms
Yeah.
as if he's been with them the whole time, just like their other friends.
Yeah.
And that immediately, as an audience member, is like, oh, okay, and he's like our surrogate.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really smart, like, creative decision to have a character like that because it would have been easy for them to just focus on the character actors that they had.
Yeah. I also thought Sierra McCormick, who comes over, who's Lizard, I thought she's really good.
Yes.
And she's also
Yeah.
in The Vast of Night, which I was, like, as soon as I saw her name, I'm like, oh my god, it's Faye!
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have seen Vast of Night. Have you seen it?
I have, and I'm about to make Nolan go see it again.
I really, really like it. The more distance I have from it, the more I'm appreciating it, but it's one of those, like, it just sits with you, and it feels like somebody plucked it right out of the Twilight Zone. And it's just like this movie out of time, like in the 50s. It's set up, basically, I forget what the name of the theater is. Like, what do they call it again?
The theater?
Like, they say it's like something theater presents.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember.
But they have a really fun framing device. Like, it's like the Twilight Zone on like an old TV, and it kind of fades into
cool.
it and stuff.
Yeah.
But the director, his story blows my mind because he's a guy who basically has lived in Oklahoma his whole life, still lives there. This is his very first movie. He basically taught himself how to direct from watching behind the scenes videos, and he would just, if he heard somebody mention some sort of tool that they used in a scene, he would just buy it randomly and then spend a month learning how to do it or use it. And then he's like, okay, now I know how to use, those things. And so it was just really interesting to me that, like, this movie, I've seen directors who've been 10 years into the career that don't have a movie as polished as this one is.
Yeah, I don't know what piece of equipment he bought to figure out that tracking shot
Holy
mid-film,
shit,
but
right?
we should all get it.
It's
one of the best. It's so pleasurable, just every moment of that tracking shot, and it does a really neat narrative thing.
Yeah. Well, he did say because it's going to be coming out on Amazon. And they have like the Amazon X-ray when like you can kind of like do things with Amazon, and he said that they're going to have a breakdown on that shot.
That's great.
It's
cool.
they have a 6-minute thing already prepared to talk about how they did. It's one of those things where you're like, what the hell did you just do? Like, holy shit. So whoever he works with next, just give him a bunch of money because it's going to make it worth it. So.
Well, I didn't get to see it, but what I thought was cool coming out of it when they first showed it was that it had a Mondo poster. Like that's how much that they're already behind the movie, that they're like, we want to make a Mondo poster for this film, which is a rare thing to see a movie that's by a first-time director that comes out of nowhere that gets something like that to immortalize it. So
I wonder if it's because he was a first-time director who nailed it, and they're seeing they want to get on the ground floor of whatever his
But what's
future
interesting,
successes are.
It's funny that because when I first heard about this movie, this isn't like a big quote unquote festival movie because it premiered at Slam Dance, not Sundance, and I'm shocked because I'm watching this and I'm like, this really should have been at Sundance. No offense to Slam Dance, but I was like, oh wow, okay. But what a major coup for them, because I do think that there's always 1 year, like every year they have like this one little gem that comes out of Slam Dance, and this is definitely it. But yeah, I think Amazon bought it out of Slam Dance.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Which is pretty crazy. So
awesome.
I do recommend it. It's and I'm a big talkie fan. Like I love talkies, like Radioland Murders and stuff like that. So.
And I'm a big over the course of a single night fan. Yeah. And it does both of those things so well.
Yeah.
You also compared it to Pontypool.
Yes. So I
Oh,
saw a
that's
lot
a good
of
comparison.
similarities with Pontypool. It's a lot of people sitting at a switchboard or a radio station and just talking. There's a lot of power in sound. That's what the catalyst for the action in this is. They hear an unusual sound. And it was one of the few sci-fi films this year that had 0 time travel.
No time travel.
No time travel.
Yes.
And there's
Very
also
refreshing.
small moments over the course of the film. They're usually transitional moments where it switches back to the black and white style and reminds you of the framing device and keeps those moments from being duller, because it is a lot of real-time action. And just every choice was a good one, I feel like. The ending, I don't know, I kind of wanted a little more from it, but every moment up to it was so good I don't even care, which is really unusual. Yeah.
It's one of those where I'm like, when I finished, I was like, oh, all right. Because I don't know, because I was in it so much where I was just like, it's, I was like, oh. But now I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, I don't give a shit. Like,
I think it did exactly what it set out to do. You're just not for sure what that is until after the first viewing.
Yeah, and maybe that onus is more on us as viewers than him as a director, because it's his movie. He gets to end it how I guess he wants to.
Well,
So.
and also, it doesn't have to be land perfectly with every person to be a very good movie that every person should check out still.
Yeah. How many of you guys have seen? I know we just talked a little bit about Lighthouse.
I slept through it, unfortunately, so I ruined Paul's chance to be able to see it.
Okay, you fell asleep through it.
theater.
No, sorry. I slept
Okay.
through my, clarification, slept through my
I was
alarm.
like sadly standing at the door, like looking out the window.
I woke up and saw 8:20, and Paul's like, "You ready?" And I was like, oh.
I had many drinks last night and made it to the 8 o'clock.
I had a couple 4 hours.
Sure.
Okay, but Adrian, were you happy about it?
About seeing the movie or about being up at that time?
Being up and somewhere at 8 o'clock?
I did not feel okay watching it.
And then they're drinking throughout the whole movie, and you're like, oh god, stop it.
Well, no, I'm there and I'm like, I feel like I'm trapped in this movie with these people. I enjoyed it, but it was a real surreal experience. I'm like, they're having a terrible time, and I'm having just a terrible body time right now. So let's keep going.
Terrible body time.
Did you feel bonded with the characters through that?
Yeah.
Him and Daniel Radcliffe are like
a
best
mutual
friends now.
dislike of seagulls. So
Yeah, so my shame is that I spent half or pretty much most of the movie thinking it was Daniel Radcliffe and not Robert Pattinson. As you can tell, the Twilight movies and Harry Potter movies meant a lot to me over the years. Where I was just, I had it in my head it was Daniel Radcliffe, and I kept looking at him, going, I get that he's all gristled and he's got this big bushy mustache, and I was like, I'm just not seeing it. I was like, maybe they added like something to his face, and I was like, that's how stupid I am. But it's literally just the glaze of Fantastic. I'm just like, huh? I was like, all right, well, I mean. I've seen him do crazier, more transformative things, so whatever. And then I was like, oh, that's because basically Daniel Radcliffe changed into Robert Pattinson for the movie.
It's impressive.
I do. It's a movie I'm glad I saw here. I don't know that I'll probably ever watch it again. I think it's a very acquired taste, which is my nice way of saying like it's an experience, but I don't know if it's a pleasurable one. It's just a movie like I feel like we've seen this before. Maybe not in this style, but I feel like there's just a lot of elements where I was like, oh, okay, so this is The Shining, cool. So people going crazy, all right. I do think Robert Pattinson, not Daniel Radcliffe. I think he's fantastic in it. I think it's probably the best work. I haven't seen High Life this year yet. I have to watch it for the end of the year. But I do think it's probably the best thing we've seen him do. I think Willem Dafoe was everything I was expecting from his character because he's Willem Dafoe. But the cinematography in that movie is ridiculous. Like that movie, if you told me they made that movie 60 years ago or 70 years ago, I'd believe you. Like maybe they time traveled. Maybe there is time travel.
I think every movie this year had time travel in it, whether we
knew it or not.
Well, I mean, in a way, that kind of works with the film since there's that whole loss of perception of time. So they could be time traveling for all we know. They don't have calendars or anything like that. So
you heard it here, folks. The Lighthouse is officially a time travel film.
Yes, it is.
It sounds more like they were on Synchronic and saw all of time as it was.
Oh, there we go.
Nice one.
I haven't gotten to see Synchronic, so I'll let you guys talk about it, but I'm really bummed that I missed it.
I'm going to it later today.
So that's another theme too. Is like besides time travel, there's the drug trip movie because there's Synchronic, there's Bliss,
The Wave.
There's The Wave.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a couple more, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
I like Synchronic a lot. I like all the Benson and Moorhead films. It's probably not my favorite of theirs. It seemed much more plot-driven than character-driven and not quite as personal. But saying it was my least favorite of theirs is whatever the opposite of damning with faint praises, praising with faint damnation, I guess. It's still very enjoyable. Anthony Mackie was great. It was great to see them working with a slightly bigger budget. It was enjoyable. It's just maybe not as personal.
Yeah.
I think for me, it worked. The lack of maybe personal stakes still worked because it, like The Long Walk, worked as like a meditation on death. So even if you weren't like that invested in Anthony Mackie's character, there was not like his performance was really good. And then because we're sort of dealing in like weighty things like what's sacrifice and death and all that, like I think the emotion still like won over for me. But I agree, like of their stuff, it's probably at the bottom. But that's just like because they've made 3 amazing movies before that.
Yeah, I thought it, out of all the many, many time travel movies we've seen this week, I thought it was definitely one of the best. I agree with Nolan that Long Walk is absolutely one of my favorites of the festival. But what I really liked about what Synchronic was saying to me was, it's about being informed by the past and not staying so focused on the present that you don't learn lessons from what's come before. So there's a lot of things in it about sort of going back in time and seeing like there's a lot of like racial divide stuff that is encountered and comparing like what's come before to what's happening now and what your life is and the decisions you made and like appreciating the present and working towards the future while like incorporating the past. There's a lot of thematic things about that in there that I haven't seen in other time travel movies. I don't think other time travel movies have really cared to handle because they become so, like, you're right, it's very plot-based compared to their other movies. But I thought like within the time travel plot, they did a lot of really interesting thematic stuff and worked through some cool emotional stuff.
Has there ever been another mainstream time travel movie that had a black lead?
I don't think so. And that was actually like what they were saying in the Q&A was like, part of the inspiration was like, oh, we love Back to the Future, But imagine if a black person had done the same thing as Marty, it would not be a fun experience for
exactly.
them. So that's what they like really get across every time he goes back. It's just like, oh shit, things are worse.
Yeah,
Like
because
I'm gonna be
of how he
attacked.
looks, and that's such an interesting thing to explore because it's incremental to the plot of the film. You know, it's like not only does he have this mission he has to accomplish because all time travel movies sort of revolve around whatever mission you're trying to do by going through time. He's got to deal with the fact that it's going to be extra difficult for him to do it, and that just kind of inherently informs the message of the movie. So I the more I think about it, the more that's a really compelling thing about that movie. I did really love it. It's a great movie.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. And just want to add that together, Benson and Moorhead, they approach all of their stories with this great sense of wonder, and they want to examine kind of, you know, the magic of the universe, these big questions and these big ideas, and then they kind of distill them down into the story that they want to tell, but they're always looking up at something larger than us, and it's something that informs what makes humanity, you know, exciting, or what makes the world so special, and, you know, all that kind of thing. So it's something that they, again, brought into their films, or this film. And yeah, it's not my favorite thing that they've done, but again, saying that when they've made 4 exceptional films now is, you know, it's still high praise. They're doing amazing work, and this is another great addition to their work.
That was really well said.
Thank you.
Speaking of sort of crazy, I mean, when you talk about Fantastic Fest movies, I feel like we probably should talk about Color Out of Space.
Please let's talk.
Yeah, because
Wait,
I mean,
that movie's totally normal. There's nothing,
Yeah,
there's nothing weird about that
So-
film.
no, it does for alpacas.
Alpacas.
What
Let's
Jaws
talk about-
does for the water? Is that what
Yeah.
the common? I don't know.
Well, they need to be in by 10.
Yes.
You set the
God
alpacas
damn it, they
Yeah.
need to be in by 10.
Alpacas will never want to be farmed by Nicolas Cage again.
Yes.
Well, they are the meat of the future.
You're not,
Is it-
you're not
And if you
supposed to
can't
eat
eat them,
that.
you can milk them, apparently.
Doesn't Richard
Yeah.
Stanley have alpacas? Isn't that sort of fun? I feel like that came up.
No. Somebody, I heard that somebody asked him a question. Originally, it was supposed to be ostriches.
Yes.
And they weren't going to be able to get hostages, so he chose alpacas because he thought that it would be funnier.
Okay.
I also imagine alpacas are a little easier to work with than ostriches or
Ostriches
sharks.
seem mean.
Yeah.
Well, I've heard alpacas are mean too, so I think
Ostriches just
any
look
of
like
those animals.
assholes.
Yeah, I was gonna say any of those animals that you see people corralling that you're like, that's probably not a good idea, are probably assholes because of it. So.
More than likely.
We've probably
More than likely.
eaten all the easy to work with animals already.
Yeah, they're.
Yeah, I liked a lot of Color Out of Space. I felt like a lot of it dragged though to me. But there is some pretty fun, crazy, weird stuff towards the end that I really like. Some really good body horror stuff. But yeah, I didn't know how, like, the first couple minutes when she's doing her little ritual and the guy comes in, I was like, I don't know about this. Like, I was sort of like, I don't know. Like, she's riding a horse. Like, what year is this? She looks like she should be at the Ren Fair.
A horse named Comet.
Yeah, it's a horse named Comet.
Second, it all goes back to Digimon.
Inside joke for you
Oh,
listeners later when
yeah.
you see all these movies.
Yeah, so I was happy to see Jolie Richardson because I used to watch Nip Tuck a lot.
That was a clap for
Was that the
Joey
wife?
Richardson,
Yes.
not for Nip Tuck.
Oh, okay. Well, it should be a clap for Nip Tuck.
For the first like 2-3 seasons, and then
Through season 5, I think is pretty good.
This just became a
Can we just talk about Nip Tuck?
Yeah, let's just do that.
if you really want to hear my thoughts on Ryan Murphy, we can do that. But that's going to take up.
I don't
want
want to have to beat your ass, is what I'm
Okay.
saying.
Wow.
Basically. So.
Gauntlet
Okay,
has
okay.
been thrown
It's a good thing I'm leaving because I'm just saying I'm not going to stand for it. No, I get it. That movie was just weird though, boy.
It gets goopy.
Very goofy.
It's
So
very
goopy.
goopy.
So goopy. So
Yeah.
wonderfully
I like
good.
that. I don't feel like there's enough horror films that go into like. I think it's because
You want
there's.
more moist horror? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Wait,
Why
the
did you
movie was
do
fine.
that?
Why did you have to turn it? God, first it's Ryan Murphy, and now it's
All
this.
listeners.
Now everything's moist.
Two strikes. Well, no, I think because we're in the age still with so much CGI, And I do like that we do have lots of practical that's coming back, but I think because that reliance on CGI, you don't get as much goop in movies because they're like, oh, we can just add it digitally, and it's like, well, no, that sliminess and gunky feeling that comes toward, especially this, since this is based off of Lovecraft, you want to have that goopy texture to it, and I think that adds a fair bit because you don't have a lot of that nowadays. You have to have people who are making something like The Void, where they're specifically saying we're trying to do Lovecraft and these other goopier type things to have that older feel.
You're totally gonna make goopy work, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah.
It is.
I think it's there now.
But I think it's a good. You don't see lots of. There's so many different tropes in horror that people reuse all the time, and there's something really visceral when you have that goopy, gunky feel to horror that adds to it. No, I think it's
take a drink every time he says goopy, everyone.
I'm fine with it. I'll still work it in there.
Even among like Lovecraft adaptations though, or like Lovecraft stories, color out of space isn't like a lot of the other stuff, just because like there's no real narrative momentum. It's just like you just hear this story about this like group of this farmer family that like basically loses it as a result of this meteor.
Yeah.
But just how weird it gets. Like the visuals were really incredible. I did also appreciate that like he was cognizant of certain aspects of Lovecraft's legacy, and so like really the like lead character of the movie is a black man, and like so you're like, okay, trying to counter a little bit of Lovecraft's inherent racism. I appreciated that, and then just like seeing that type of story play out as good as it did, I think was great. We all have varying different degrees. I think Nicolas Cage works like 80% of the time. Well, no, it's probably more like 90. There's just like a couple, probably like 5 minutes of the movie.
Like the accent?
Yeah, when he starts...
His affectation
does alter slightly.
Yeah, but it only happens at certain points, and I don't know where like the impetus
I
of that
can tell you
is.
that's him doing his dad, Augustus Coppola or August Coppola.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay.
So that's basically, if you go back and watch Vampire's Kiss, that's
it was
him.
the same.
Him being his dad in Vampire's Kiss.
Yeah.
And so I think because this is a movie about like watching your family slip away, I think he wanted to channel his dad again. So that's why.
Yeah. Not the
That's really
fictional father that
interesting.
would have been there, but the actual father.
But his
himself.
actual dad, yeah.
And what I'll say about Cage, because I have a lot of thoughts on Cage. No, I thought
You
he.
talk to a man who's wearing a shirt of 9 different Cage faces.
So I'm just going to shut up because I'm not wearing the Cage shirt. But no, so I would agree. I mean, Cage, what I liked about Cage in this movie is most of the time Cage is either completely insane or he's normal.
Yeah.
And in this movie, he's all over the map. So sometimes he's a 4, sometimes he's a 12. Like he jumps around, and I think it falls in line because obviously like a lot of Lovecraft stuff is about descending into madness. And all of the characters in this film experience that in different ways. And someone said the other day that Nicolas Cage was in a different movie, and I'm like, well, this is the one time where that's sort of okay, because his descent into madness is going to be different than the other characters. And for me, it really worked. And then, yes, it does draw the occasional unintentional laugh, more than likely. But honestly, in a movie that's so crazy and so over the top and so, like, dark in some ways, but having that sort of humor, I thought made the experience more enjoyable. And I can't quite explain why, but I think it adds a sense of levity that I welcomed.
I think we all yelled over Nolan before he actually said how he felt about the performance. He said it and then...
Yeah, like,
Sorry,
sorry.
we basically already said it, I was really surprised at how good he was at like slipping back into like normal Nick. Like it almost felt like Nick, like he hadn't felt that normal in almost like a long time. So it was just like the goofiness did pull me out of a little bit, because we were talking about like when it comes to Lovecraft, I generally prefer a little more bleak. So like his goofiness just sort of pulled me out a little bit. But like again, the scenes where he goes hard on that are so minimal that like. And I don't even think he's the lead for me, so like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I think one of the other things I really liked about the film was the fact that it wasn't afraid to lean into the weirdness and really embrace it, because so much about this story and just about Lovecraft in particular is this cosmic fear of the unknown and what we can't understand. So this film showed so much, but didn't try to over-explain it, and it just kind of let you sit with this feeling of this is so big and so crazy, and there's no way in hell I'm going to understand it. and just let that fear kind of seep in.
Did anybody else love the youngest kid in the film?
Yes.
Because I already like the kid. He was in Greener Grass this year.
Hill House.
Oh,
House, yeah.
Oh, he's
Yeah.
baby Luke from Hill House.
Yeah.
Also.
But he's having a great year when it comes to genre, and each of his performances are different enough that there's something kind of magical about the kid. But at the same time, I feel sorry for him because like every part he plays is destined for something terrible to happen to him. It's just like, so I hope the kid is okay in general because he keeps on
Seems
taking
like
on
a
these
happy
roles.
I hope you're
that,
okay.
That like just terrible things are happening to.
Yeah.
So
As Emily pointed out too, there's an important connection to the guest because the oldest brother is the kid from the guest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I like when we play a little cinematic. It's really nice. I'll turn it to Charlie from It's Always Sunny.
Yeah.
Like, it's like this and this.
It's all in camera.
So, kind of like wrapping up, like what would be the one movie like you guys would champion out of Fantastic Fest that maybe people it may not like, you know, most fans or people that are going to listen, they're going to know about VFW, they're going to know about Color Out of Space. I like that everybody's collectively pulling out their phones right now.
I gotta check my letterbox.
Everyone's
I
pull
will
up their
say-
letterbox.
If we haven't talked about the lodge at all.
Oh, okay.
But in
why
although I would
are
say,
you doing this to me?
as opposed to that question though, I feel like the lodge is going to get a big attention. We should talk about it because it's amazing. But like, I feel like that'll get big buzz.
Well, that's why I brought it up.
But they
Should
did.
we-
I think they just pushed it, didn't they? Did they
It's
push it
in
to
November.
February? No,
Oh,
I thought it got pushed to
Really?
February.
Well,
Wow, really?
I think it might have gotten pushed.
See, that's the weird. Probably the only thing I'll say about the lodge. It's in a really weird position right now because it premiered at Sundance. I believe it played at South by. I know it played at Cinepocalypse.
I don't think it was at South by.
Was it? I thought it was.
Because I'm pretty sure it didn't, and that's why I was
Okay.
surprised.
I know that it played.
Oh, you
at,
know what? Yeah, I think I'm wrong.
It was
Never mind.
it was at Overlook. It was at Cinepocalypse. It was at something most recently. It was here.
It's like everybody's seen it.
Yeah, but I mean I can't think of another film that started out at Sundance and by this time of the year is still playing the circuit when it's had a release for a period of time. Because before it got announced here was when they said that it was going to be released in November. And so now hearing that it's been pushed back to February, it's
I think I swear I saw that email
Yeah.
come into when we were here. Like I think they announced it like Thursday or Friday.
That's really annoying because this movie needs to be out for Christmas.
For sure.
It's a Christmas horror movie that will make you feel all kinds of terrible.
It's interesting because I don't want to say I enjoyed the movie because I enjoyed the movie, but I didn't enjoy the movie.
Oh, I never want to see it again.
Yeah, it's the best movie I will never
I
watch.
enjoyed feeling terrible.
But it was also there's very few movies that I'm like I never want to sit through that again, but that I also found satisfying.
Yeah.
And The Lodge is one of those. There
Yes.
was a sort of justice. There was.
I think that's why I was also like it was satisfying because like terrible things happen and then like you said without getting further there's a little justice and you're like yes.
But it's also not like a justice you want to continue to see in the world, but in that movie it was satisfying.
Yeah, when you talk about bleak genre movies, like I think that's like the definition of bleak horror in 2019. That is that movie.
We all collectively compared it to Hereditary. Like you
Yeah.
have that, so much dollhouse stuff going on, and it all sort of like spins out of a terrible moment of grief that then like ripples out and affects
Hurts
everybody.
everyone.
It's funny though, for me, Hereditary though ends up being slightly cathartic at the end because even though you can't stop what's coming, like at least it's like it's to this place where like it's kind of a terrible place, but at least it's like somewhere else where this is just like no, everybody is just totally screwed in this movie and it's
Yeah.
horrible and
Yeah.
Good
it
luck
ends on
shaking
this
it off.
great feeling of dread.
yeah.
I'd be remiss if I just didn't say I absolutely loved it. It's like for me, it's exactly the kind of movie I love, and I thought it was. I mean, every element of the movie was so well done. You know, we were talking about like just craft earlier with Taika. Like this is to me, this is an example of like sort of the best in craft when it comes to horror and creating dread. Like every frame of this movie just serves to build dread. You know, and then the movie sort of pays that dread off. Because a lot of times the frustration is you have a movie like that builds up all this dread, but there's no real climactic moment that sort of serves the dread they built. I think this movie like delivers on that.
They gives you a couple of climactic moments.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And you know, and again, it's a movie that's like sort of hard to talk about because like talking about almost any part of it will give something away that I would rather not give away. But I really loved it, and yeah, for me, Hereditary was a very different movie, but a lot of what I liked about Hereditary, I liked about this.
Yeah. Although you were saying about violence against animals in movies.
This is not a good one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, a recap.
The worst offender was Synchronic. Because that was just bad writing, but
Yeah.
that was the one thing my actual complaint about the movies. Like that
Yeah.
that dog thing was actually just bad. Didn't need to be.
Didn't
done.
need to happen.
no.
Also, in the tall grass, the fate of the dog is actually undetermined at the end.
Better than nothing.
So it's
Right.
iffy. Like, part of it, it's not good. Other parts, you're like, well, maybe.
Well, maybe.
Yeah, the lodge though. No, it's
The
the
lodge,
reason
no.
I can't show it to Brian because he will look at me like, why would you do this to me?
And I just a general plea to the universe. It is really hard on those of us who are deeply horror fans, love genre, and every time there's an animal, it's just the same plot device over and over
Yeah,
again.
kill as many humans as you want. Please
Yeah.
leave our dogs alone.
Right.
It's funny because I saw, and I won't mention any names, but I saw a producer who was like, stop killing dogs in horror movies, and yet that person produced a movie that was at Sundance where the dog gets shot, and I was like, are you serious right now? Like,
Exactly. This is your problem to fix.
I see,
You have to
that,
do
I see
it.
that on Twitter a lot.
yeah, and I'm
People
just
saying
like,
stuff that.
but you did it too, like,
Yeah, right.
because they're.
And I mean, if nothing else, it's just we've seen the trope. We know what it means. Like they're the canary in the coal mine for everything that's about to follow.
Yeah.
So let's look at another way to
Set the
tip
canary
that.
free.
Right.
Or like
Yeah.
we can't
Do
work
it
another
differently.
human in the story, so we need something else to kill. So
Well, and it's also the assumption that people don't feel as badly when the animal dies as they do when humans die. When I think
It's
that's bullshit.
the sympathies are shifting. It's
Yeah.
actually because none of us like people, but dogs are still okay. No one's canceled dogs.
Maddie Doe has a lot to.
Maddie Doe gets it. So if we are talking about things that people might not see otherwise, I would use
we
The
already-
Long Walk.
The Long Walk.
I 100% agree with The Long Walk.
The other one I would say that I feel like will not get a lot of attention, and also will probably not be for a lot of people, is The Antenna, which is a Turkish film. And it's like they basically install these antennas on top of the satellite or the apartment blocks, and
So it's not just a clever name.
no, it's right there in the title. But it's like very very slow, very deliberately paced. Had a lot of elements in common with things like some Cronenberg, like Shivers and Videodrome in particular. But it's like a interesting, again, like the sort of the programmer who introduced it was mentioning just like, it's good to remember like sort of what issues are affecting other cultures right now. And so this was like, felt like a window into maybe some of what's going on in Turkey. And so like, I don't know, I thought it was it's a movie that's like really centered on making this metaphor, and so like it does repeat it a lot. You like once you can get it early on, and so like that's why I think people have issues with the pacing. It's like we know what you're saying, keep going, but like it's really just about like filling out this metaphor to the full extent. And I agree it had a little pacing issues at the end, but I think it's really interesting and cool. So
Sure.
I think for me, I will say Swallow, and I know it got picked up by IFC and it's going to be out.
So that's probably due to your review, probably, right?
Yes, it was all because of me.
Yeah.
You're welcome,
We
everybody.
did it.
I think it's going to get overlooked by a lot of genre fans because it can easily be kind of categorized more as a drama. But I think that it's really fascinating because it is a very true-to-life story that kind of just examines how we react to trauma and how we react when we're not properly dealing with the things in our pasts and where that can lead. So I think a lot of people went into it thinking it was going to be just kind of this gonzo bonkers film about this chick who walks around her house just swallowing random shit. But it's really serious, and it looks into the reasons why she started on this behavior. And then it kind of allows her to come to terms with some things in her past, and it allows her a path to healing, which was really, really beautiful and profound. And I think that it's a really great film that I would hate to see overlooked.
Gotcha. How about for you, Adrian?
There's two. There's one I won't really mention a lot about because it's on Netflix, but I think it'll get kind of buried in the Netflix lurch just all the hundreds of movies that they seem to put out every single Friday, and half of them they don't tell you about. It's
I know.
I Lost My Body, which showed at Cannes and it's an animated film, and it's 2D animation, and like it's painstakingly done, and that's one of the beautiful things about it. But it just has a really simple and moving story, and the way everything's told is very lyrical, and it's just very poetic in the way everything moves, and the music is great behind it, and it's really genuinely moving. It's not very long, but you just kind of get wrapped up in the way that they're telling the story. When you say that it's about a disembodied hand trying to make its way home, you don't really think you'll get wrapped up in emotion, but they've got a story of just, about moments in life, and it was really moving. But it's on Netflix, so keep an eye out for that one. But the other one that I saw recently was Why Don't You Just Die, which is just, it's so much fun. It's over the top. It's mostly set in one location with a couple little backstory beats that take you out of it, but it's more so they use that as a kind of moment for the audience to collect their breath, because otherwise it's some crazy insane action sequences that are just in this apartment, and a guy's been given a very simple job or task by his girlfriend, which is, hey, I need you to kill my father because of terrible things that happened to me when I was a kid. And it just continually gets big and giant and out of control, and it's over the top but cartoonish in a way that like you can buy. It's a type of movie where somebody gets shot by a gun and it launches them across the room, but then at the same time somebody will get like hit by a knife or something and a geyser of blood explodes all over the place, so it grabs you and doesn't really let go, and it's really funny the whole time, and it's again, it's short. It's like a perfect 90 minutes. It gets in, knows what it wants to do, entertains you, and then ends, and you just have a giant smile on your face at the end because of how fun it is.
Excellent.
Awesome.
I think for me, speaking of the lodge and sort of these overflow of actors that we sort of seen here at the festival, I think my pick is The Adventures of Wolf Boy. I'm totally blanking on the director's name, but it harkened back to early Tim Burton stories for me, where it's sort of the outsider on a road trip, meeting weird characters along the way, and it's really sweet. Wolf Boy is played by Jade Martell, who, yeah.
Isn't that the same kid who's in The Lodge?
Yes,
And
who is also Bill from
Oh.
the It movies.
Okay.
Oh, awesome.
And he's, like, that kid is so freaking good.
He was so good in The
I
Lodge.
think I'm
Like,
seeing, or I picked that for tomorrow. I think it's showing
It's a
tomorrow.
really sweet movie, and it has also John Turturro's in it.
Oh,
Chloe
what? I
Sevigny.
didn't know anyone was in this.
Yeah, he's like a villain
I
in
am
it.
now very excited for
He's a
this.
carnival owner, so
Oh.
the Jesus is running a carnival now. And then also it's really funny because one of the characters I really liked in it was this girl who just sort of, I keep totally forgetting the character's name, but I figured out that it's Eve Hewson, who is Bono's daughter, and I was like, oh shit, she's really good in this. And it has a lot of really good things to say about accepting people you don't necessarily understand. He gets bullied a lot because of the way he looks. So there's, some powerful stuff about that. I think Chris Messina plays his dad. So it's really good character stuff. It's just a delight. Like, it made my heart feel good. And I don't know, it's not one of the flashier movies that's here this year. It's just a really fun sort of modern fairy tale. Like, they actually have little interstitials where it's like Wolf Boy meets the mermaid, or Wolf Boy, makes a deal with the devil, and it's like they have like the old classic art and stuff.
Okay.
So it's if you're into that kind of stuff, it's the kind of movie I wish Tim Burton was still making. You know what I mean? Like something harkens back to like the Edward Scissorhands type of
Or Big Fish a little
Big
bit.
Fish,
Oh my God,
Pee-wee, but yeah, it's really good and really fun. So I had a really good time with that one. So
Awesome.
yeah. So I guess that kind of brings us towards the end. I don't know if there's anything anybody else wants to say, but I just wanted to say thank you guys. One, for making this an amazing, fantastic fest for me, personally, because I'm usually super antisocial at festivals, and I'm always working, and being able to hang out with you guys for the last 5 or 6 days has been amazing, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate you guys being here today as well.
Yeah.
I guess this is sort of our Corpse Club / Dead Ringers / Horrorversary triple crossover events.
We did.
But I do appreciate, you guys, being here to talk movies with me. And I don't know if there's anything else really to say except, I guess if you're want more information on Corpse Club, go to corpseclub.com for all your movie news and reviews and that stuff. I'm so thrilled. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. Take care of the business.
You can go here.
Go to dailydids.com if you have to, whatever. But I guess until next time, everybody, stay fantastic.